What up, nerds? Welcome to a very special YouTube edition of Straight Chilling. My name's Bob, and I'll be your host for the evening. Today, I just wanted to take a moment of your time and talk about 10 horror movies that I consider to be underseen or maybe underappreciated. I just don't hear a whole lot of people talking about them. So I want to recommend them to you guys. If you have seen any of these before, which you very well may have, let me know in the comments below what you thought about them. If you liked them, if you didn't like them. And if you have any suggestions for future YouTube videos, let me know. Let me know what you'd like to hear me talk about. I love hearing from you guys. I always appreciate the feedback. So drop those in the comments below as well. Without further ado, let's go ahead and run down the list here. These are no particular order at all, just 10 movies that I think are worth your time. So the first one is a movie called Hell Baby. It's one of my favorite horror comedies. It's got Keegan-Michael Key in it. It's brought to you by the same dudes that produced Reno 911, so if you're familiar with Key and Peele or Reno 911, you know the style of humor that you're in for here. There's a crazy demon-possessed baby running around New Orleans trying to kill everybody. It's hilarious. It's absurdist. Highly recommend you watch it. It'll keep you rolling. Next one I want to recommend is one that I talked about on our Top 10 of 2018 show. It's a movie called Director's Cut. There you go. Brought to you by Epic Pictures and Dread Central Presents. This movie was written and stars Penn Gillette from Penn and Teller, the Magicians, which is kind of bizarre. But this is sort of like the next level in meta horror, in my opinion. Never seen a movie quite like this before. It's about a movie that was crowdfunded, and Penn he put a lot of money down to have this movie get made, and he didn't really like how it turned out. So he takes the footage and he sort of rearranges it. He shoots new footage himself via stalking the star of the movie and cuts his footage into the movie. And as you're watching it, throughout the entirety of it, there is a director's commentary going over the top. So he's explaining to you exactly what changes he made and why he made them. And it gets super creepy as it goes. It starts off kind of light and funny, but after a while you realize this guy's absolutely insane. Penn Gillette is also like a massive man, which I didn't realize. He's actually kind of scary. A great movie. Like I said, never seen one quite like this before. I highly recommend you check it out. And I believe it's streaming on Amazon Prime right now too, so you can watch it on the cheap. Next one I highly recommend you watch is a great little movie called Cheap Thrills. This is probably considered more of like a thriller or a suspense movie. I don't know how horror it is, but it gets a little hairy towards the end. Anyway, movie has Pat Healy in it, one of my favorite actors. It's also got Ethan Embry in it, another one of my favorite actors, and David Koechner, who is absolutely amazing in this movie. Who would have known that he is actually a really great actor, apparently. Anyway, Pat Healy in the movie, he falls on hard times, he loses his job, he and his family are about to get evicted, so he goes to the bar, grabs a beer, runs into his old pal Ethan Embry, and they run into David Koechner, whom apparently is super crazy rich, and he's throwing his money around, so he starts daring Healy and Embry to do crazy shit. And he's like, you know, go up to the bar, hit on that girl. If you get her to slap you in the face, I'll give you 20 bucks. So they start doing these crazy dares. Each dare gets more insane. And of course, the money that he promises to give them if they complete the dare gets higher and higher. So much fun. It's a great party movie. Watch it with some friends, grab a beer. I guarantee you're not going to regret it. Next one I want to mention is a 80s slasher movie. I got a sweet spot for the slashers, so I got a couple slashers in here I want to talk about. A movie called The Initiation. This is a really great movie that was, Arrow actually put out a really nice edition of it. There's a lot of great special features and stuff like that on there if you're into that kind of thing. I actually believe this is also streaming on Amazon Prime, so you can watch that on the cheap. But it's a great sort of down the middle 80s slasher movie. There's a little bit of I don't know, extra stuff thrown in that you probably wouldn't see normally in a slasher movie, but there's really not a whole lot of craziness going on in here. It's just sort of like a slasher movie that I feel people don't really talk about. You know, there's all the Freddys and Jasons and Michael Myers, but this one kind of goes under the radar a little bit. It's worth checking out. I really enjoyed it. There's, you know, stupid humor. Definitely worth watching. So the next movie I want to talk about is a little movie called The House on Sorority Row. You probably have heard of this one before. I believe it's streaming on Amazon Prime. At least it was last I checked. So this movie, it's another 80s slasher joint. It's got a little more put into it than like you would expect from a normal slasher film. It's got a lot of psychological horror going on there. They do a lot of interesting things with some of the camera work. And it's actually, if you've seen that show on FX, it's canceled, but it's called Scream Queens. The first season of Scream Queens, this is totally the inspiration for that. Just less humor in the original, of course. It's totally worth your time. Like I said, it's a slasher, but a little extra. You get a little more than you bargained for on that one. It's one of my faves. Definitely check it out. Next up, a little movie I want to recommend is called The Mutilator. And of course, this is a fantastic edition that Arrow Video put out. It's got a really nice slipcover and all that jazz. So this movie is sort of like a random one-off slasher that was made somewhere, it's like small town North Carolina, I believe. The director just wanted to make a slasher movie, I guess. I don't know. There's a lot of like really fantastic practical effects in this movie. Dumb teenagers go to a cabin on their fall break and get brutally murdered. There's a lot of great bonus features on this edition put out by Arrow. Most notably, my favorite special feature on this is they interview the composer. And as the movie starts, you'll notice the intro credits are rolling, and there's this truly bizarre song that's playing that seems very happy and just does not match the tone of what you would expect a slasher movie to be. And they interview him, and they ask him, like, hey man, what's going on with this theme song that you wrote for the movie? And he apparently totally misunderstood the style of song that the director asked him to write, and for some reason the director just used the song anyway. I don't know why. It's hilarious, totally worth your time. I highly recommend checking it out, The Mutilator. Next up, a little movie I want to talk to you about is called Deathgasm. This one here is from New Zealand, actually. It's a heavy metal horror comedy. It's fantastic. It's basically about these two high school kids. They start a band, a metal band obviously, and they call it Deathgasm. They find this old piece of music, they play it on their guitars, and through doing that, they bring all these terrible demons to their town, and they have to fight them off with whatever they can find, and there may or may not be a scene where they decide to fight them off with some dildos. So the movie is hilarious. Highly recommend you check it out. Next up, I want to talk about another movie actually that's from New Zealand here. It's called Housebound. Came out a few years ago. It was on Netflix for quite a while. It might still be there. This movie is kind of interesting in the fact that it takes like three subgenres of horror and kind of rolls them into one. The movie totally evolves and becomes something you do not see coming whatsoever. It's got some really solid comedic beats in there. The cast does a fantastic job. And it's one of those things that you kind of just... It evolves in a way that it's impossible to see coming. I highly recommend you check it out. Housebound, great comedy. Last but not least, movie I want to recommend to you guys, you probably have heard of before. I'm hoping you haven't seen it though. It's a little movie called Shadow of the Vampire. This guy. So at this point in like horror and like pop culture in general, really, everybody's sick of vampires. Nobody wants to watch a damn vampire movie. This guy right here has got John Malkovich and Willem Dafoe in it, so the acting credentials are through the roof. Basically what this movie is about, it's about the making of the original Nosferatu, the classic vampire movie Nosferatu, everybody knows. So the way that it treats that, though, is Nosferatu is like a real vampire in real life as they're shooting this movie. Nosferatu is played by Willem Dafoe. He does a fantastic job. There's some solid comedic beats in here. It also gets pretty damn creepy. Willem Dafoe's amazing. If you didn't know, it turns out he can act pretty well. So if you're looking for a vampire movie, this may be a little bit different than one that you've ever seen before. Shadow of the Vampire, I highly recommend you check it out. It's worth your time. So those are the 10 movies that I wanted to recommend to you guys. I may make another one of these, because obviously I got way more than 10 movies that I'd like to recommend to you. Let me know what you thought of the video in the comments below. And again, keep those suggestions rolling. Let me know if there's anything specific you'd like to hear me talk about in the future. I hope you guys are doing well. Thanks so much for stopping by. Until next time, as always, everybody please keep chilling.